Okay, so welcome, Travis. Thank you so much for joining us. It is an absolute privilege to have you on the show today. So, in your words, we will jump right in and get started.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So, obviously, this podcast is primarily about success and really inspiring people to want to be successful. So for everybody listening home, what I thought would be good is if first we could kind of just get a bit of background about you and kind of how and why you got started on the journey to success that you did. So I understand that obviously your original fate, shall we say, was paved to be a pro golfer. So kind of what happened with that, and how did you end up realizing your true passion?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks to all your listeners for tuning in. The answer to the backstory is I'm not sure the show's long enough for me to go through the entire story since I turned 50 this year. So I'll give you the abbreviated version.
Okay.
The abbreviated version is, like many people, my parents had a strong influence on how my life was supposed to be laid out. The irony was I had two very opposing parents as far as their style. My mother was a model and an actress, and my father was a fighter pilot. So if you ever saw the original movie Top Gun, that was not my life. It was just like fly by. It didn't work. Divorce was over by 9 years old. Childhood had a different experience. So, but my father wanted me to be a PGA Tour professional golfer and had put a golf club in my hand since I was 5. And, by the time I was, middle school and early high school, I was pretty good at the game and really kind of had locked my sights onto it. And my world revolved around it. Matter of fact, if you go back and look at all of my high school's like yearbook, everybody knew Travis was going to the PGA Tour. I was captain of the team. Won to blah, 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 blah. Everyone else on summer vacation, I'm playing golf. And then there's this funny thing that I always remind people of. There's your plan, and then there's, Great Spirit's plan. You can call Great Spirit whatever you want, and yours generally doesn't matter. Well, I found that lesson out at 17, and I became a first-time father, and it was not a plan, of course. And my partner, she was obviously an athlete as well. So she was going to one university, and I was going to another, and that makes it challenging. So that was a problem. But then the second one really was moreover that I was emotionally unprepared for the breakup because we were kids. We had no idea what we were doing and whatnot. But I was unprepared for it. And I really went from, hey, my life's all planned out to being an emotional basket case in about, 2.3 seconds. And so when I was, in the first year of university, I started looking around and said, well, maybe I should go to the psychology department because maybe my head's not on square. You need to get to be mentally tough and all the things I had heard growing up through golf, but had never really understood it at, life level. I understood it regarding golf, but that golf, isn't life. Golf is still a game. Long story longer, I met my mentor who I ended up sitting under for 15 years. And he actually, taught me through both of my degrees, made sure that I was, really on point and on par. But he was, I call him Obi-Wan because he had this other gift about him. He's taken, the journey now. He's not on the planet anymore, but, he really took an interest in me. To this day, I'm not sure why, but I'm grateful that he did. And he really went way, way, way beyond, a teacher-student relationship. He really, helped me develop my career and what the message was. But what came out of that were two fundamental things. One, I realized I went in to fix me because I thought I was broken. I was like, my life's falling apart. I'm a basket case, blah. I want to fix me. I don't really care about helping other people. In fact, it was not in my interest at all. I was like, I got to get back on, the game or my life's over, not true, but my head really loved to tell me that. And two, what came of that sequencing was, this kind of subsplits part. One was I realized through that process of starting to look at myself and own who I was and start to really identify myself. I was playing golf for all the quote unquote wrong reasons. I didn't really love golf. I'm good at it. I like golf, but I don't love it. I love what I do. That's why I've been doing it for 30 years now. But I did it because that was the only way I could relate to my father. My father and I had a very, very emotionally distant relationship. He was a performance-based gentleman. If I didn't perform, then, I wasn't accepted. If I performed, then I got an attaboy, and that was about it. So I was constantly in this search for what's going to get dad's approval. And I'm sure many of your listeners in some form or another have gone through that with their parents. The challenge is, how do you deal with it? And so when I started down my journey, what I wanted to do is create a system. And obviously, we'll talk about the film here in a minute, but the film is a part of that system of a 30-year journey of creating the Architects of Being community and the online academy of how do we actually deal with ourselves? How do we deal with relationships? Where do these thoughts come from, by the way? Because I went from one day going, I'm going to be the greatest thing since Jack Nicklaus, and now obviously Tiger Woods is, but I was going to be that guy to, I can't stop crying randomly because I feel like an emotional, I'm a basket case. What the heck just happened to me? Did it in like 3.2 seconds. And all of a sudden I felt completely mad. Like, oh my gosh, I've lost my mind. I'm not sure I've really ever had it, but if I did, then what I've lost, I lost of that. And so I realized I wasn't playing golf for the right reasons, and I wasn't playing for me. And when I left golf and said, I'm going to take a break, I turned pro at 19, said I did 6 months on a mini tour and just was a miserable human being. I was miserable with myself. Nothing was ever good enough. No shot was ever going to be right. And if you've ever played golf, it's a maddening game anyways. And so, because you're dealing with yourself, I'm like, well, that's not what I wanted to deal with. I just wanted to get back on the guy. And so long story long, a couple degrees later, and I spent, most of my young career traveling everywhere, developing a system that was a how-to system, now called, the Architects of Being, and helping companies put their cultures together, training sales teams to create, really dynamic relationship, not just how do I manipulate or sell, but most importantly, what about the person? Because somewhere down the road, everyone's going to come into the realization that no matter what industry you're in and what business you're in the people business, period. So if you don't know how to deal with you and get yourself out of your own way to create the success that you want to create, whatever that means to you, by the way, and that's a whole nother thing. What I thought was success was, winning the Masters was supposed to be successful. I was going to be somebody. Now I could care less if I ever won. I've been to Augusta many times, an amazing place, but if I never won the green jacket, I'm not only okay with it, I'm on point, passion, and purpose because I'm addicted to the drug that I think is most powerful for me, which is watching people wake themselves up and truly creating a life and a lifestyle. And that starts with architecting. You don't build a house or a building or any kind of thing without a blueprint. Yet ironically, we don't give people a blueprint for life. We don't give them a blueprint of how this works anatomically, meaning your body or your mind. And we don't give them a blueprint how to architect success. Well, 30 years later, our academy does both of those simultaneously now. So that's kind of the snapshot.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible. Thank you for that overview.
You're welcome.
So, let's talk about then what you believe is the biggest key to success. So I know you've mentioned to me before that what you kind of call the 3 Ps, if you like, so passion, practice, and persistence. So I thought it would be really cool just to kind of break those down and explore why you feel each one of those is kind of been such a key to your success. So if we sort of look at passion first, why do you think that that's really motivated you?
I think passion is so misconstrued, and it's an overused word, especially in today's social media. Everyone says, you got to be passionate. Hey, Sarah, you got to be passionate. Okay. About what is always the question. And my response has always been, it's not about what, it's just passion. So example, if I said to you, hey, Sarah, let's go have a cup of tea, but I want you to be absolutely in your passion about that concept, you're probably going to look at me like I've completely gone mad. You're going to go, huh? And I'm going to respond to you and go, okay, the reason why that's a challenge is your brain is trying to interpret an emotional state of being. Mm-hmm. Your brain doesn't do that. All it does is interpret. It can never be in that emotion. But what if I showed you a way where you could where you could be passionate about everything? And I'm not talking about false optimism or fake it till you make it, or Norman Vincent Peale Learned Optimism, which is a great book. I'm talking about being in a state of passion. Meaning, wow, I get to make tea with this amazing hostess and I get to talk to this person and her story and the things that she's done, and I get to learn. Because the truth is, when you step all the way back, you realize, hey, life is a journey. It's a series of amazing adventures and experiences. The question is, are you willing to architect the life that you want, or are you going to stay stuck up here? Because your mind's going to tell you, well, there's nothing to be passionate about, Sarah. It's a cup of tea and a couple lumps of sugar, big deal. I'm like, what if it was your last? Would it be a different deal?
Yeah.
And you start to understand, well, wait a minute, how am I really programming myself? And so being passion is a completely different experience. The number one thing I deal with when people first come into the academy is they say, Travis, I don't know what my passion is. I say, great, let's be passionate about everything. And they, of course, again, they look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, wait a minute, you've tried it the search way, because that's the way we're all taught. Go find your passion, love. You get into your passion. Once you find your passion and make that a job, you're the luckiest person in the world. Yet 99% of the people spend their entire life searching and never hit the mark and miss it. And before you know it, life's over. Well, what if we shifted gears and said, let me show you how to be passionate about everything from an emotional state. Now we'll get this brain popped on square, and it'll work for you in a completely different way, the way it was originally designed to work, but learn it from a clinical perspective. So you know the science of what's actually happening, the best that we know at the current time, right? How to apply it. There's a concept, the how to. And then last part is experience it. So I can measure results of, when do I go offline? When do I put myself over into this box? And, oh, hey, I'm getting the results that I want. Practice becomes the second P. Practice means we're not really taught how to be. We're taught how to do, we're not taught how to dream. We're taught how to hope. And we're not taught how to create. We're taught how to pass through life and hope to God you make it. All right. Well, I think that sucks. That's not how we're designed to live. And I'm not talking about false bravado of go out there, come on there. You're going to go out there and you're going to be the greatest thing since cheese. Well, and you might be, but that's not what life really is, because the truth is, and I'll just share with your listeners right now, that anybody who comes to the academy, you're going to be smacked in the face the day one of your training. First day. I don't care what level you come in. If you're coming in for mastery, if you're coming in just for the jump experience or keys to fear, or whatever you're coming into, it's the same thing. And it's the only truth I've found on the planet. I've traveled the world 3 times now around the globe. I spent 5 years studying with all the great masters after I left, being Dr. Fox, and said, wait a minute, that's only mindset stuff. There's something missing here. I spent 5 years traveling the globe, went everywhere. I mean, from the hills of Bhutan to Ireland to Istanbul to Yemen, you name it, I've been there. I've done it, to go ask the question, what the heck is this all about? And they all came back with relatively the same thing. And from that, I became acutely aware of what we call the noble truth. And the noble truth says this: none of us are getting off this planet alive, period. No one. Simple. I don't care what religion you're from. I don't care what culture you're from. I don't care if you're male or female. I don't care if you're gay or straight, rich or poor. It don't matter. You're leaving broken dead. Cool. So now that we can own that, then we must look at the one thing that inhibits us all from truly living: fear. We are scared to death, puns intended, that one day it's all going to end, and we've never really experienced, loved, lived, been passionate, traveled where we want to travel because we're too bloody afraid, because we've been programmed that you got to go get rich, or you got to make your bills, or you got to make 2.1 kids to be successful, and you got to be normal, whatever the heck that is. And that's total hogwash. And it has wasted so many people's experiences. And so the Architects of Being is committed to, one, changing the educational system to over 1 million architects worldwide. So we're teaching these skills from the beginning, meaning that kids learn how to deal with themselves, because adults, we clearly don't. We're kind of backpedaling at this point, and that's fine. Let's do it. But then the persistence comes in from, you've done it the other way. I'm turning 50 this year, and I took at people and I said, look, I played the front 9 of my life pretty much par, maybe 1 under, right? Back 9, I'm swinging for every hole, every shot, because at the end of the 18th hole, it's over. So there's no holding back. So when we look back at our lives, we go, wait a minute, I've already spent X amount of years searching for passion, trying to find where I fit in. Does this really work? Or am I just making a living? Well, that's great. So you have a ton of data to show that that model doesn't really hit the mark for you again. And so what if we just shifted models? Again, I say unto you, the number one thing they're going to run into, you're going to run into the fear, because we're scared to death, literally. And once we start unpacking that and own that, there's a massive freedom that comes from that, that not only will you be passionate, you will be infectiously, it's contagious. People go, I just want to be around Sarah. This woman just makes me feel amazing. I don't know what it is, but she's passionate about a cup of tea. How can you be? I've never been passionate about anything in my life. And I'm like, isn't that the point? I mean, again, and I'll put it to your listeners this way. If you look at it if you only had 30 days left to live on this planet, would you be doing anything you're doing right now? And if your answer is no, anywhere, your business, your personal, even your weight, how you exercise and take care of yourself, your relationships, your travel, if any part is no, stop waiting. You owe it to yourself to stop. There's no do-overs. There's none. It's a joke. I don't care what your religious dogma is. You're not coming back in this body. So let's own this and let's go for it. Because now more than ever, especially during these unprecedented times, we've gotten the stark reminder that you don't know when you're going to leave the planet. So, and again, I'm not talking about reckless abandonment, although some people like to do that, but I'm like, wait a minute, you can truly architect your life if you have a blueprint and you understand how to run your blueprint, because it's way beyond the law of attraction, which is this film's all about. Because if you just thought it and it showed up, well, you and I'd both be out of work. They wouldn't be there. But the truth is, it doesn't just think it and it just shows up. Ta-da! I mean, otherwise you could sit on the couch all day and eat cookies, you'd be fine. It doesn't work that way. So there's 9 other laws that actually govern this law of attraction that nobody talks about, the real secrets. And so as we do in the Architects of Being, we actually show you step by step how to be the 3 Ps consistently, because you practice how to fail. You practice how to make excuses. You practice how to let yourself get out of weight. You practice how yourself to go, I'm not going to start my business today, because you practice to tell yourself there's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme. Name the excuse. I've heard them all. And I'm like, great. So you've gotten really good at practicing not being who you want to be. Now that you've done that, maybe you might want to start practicing being who you want to be. But that scares us, because then we've got to own the part of us that says, I don't know who I am, because we haven't really dove into that or jumped in. If I can use the pun. There you go.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more, particularly at the part around failing and learning to fail. It's something that many people like yourselves really have got a grip of, and they've learned how to deal with that. And I heard a really great saying the other day about failing forward. And I thought that was really nice, because if you're failing, you've tried and you've had a go, and that's only another step towards your success. So I can completely agree with you there. I think that's...
Can I dovetail off that?
Yeah.
I'm just really curious. How does failing forward make it any more palatable, any more okay? It's still a judgment and a couching psychologically, neurologically, and neuropathology. In your neuropathology, come on, Travis, you will actually create a habit that says, oh, bloody hell, it's okay as long as I fail forward, but I'm still failing. It doesn't change. All that is an adjective and an excuse for your brain to redirect the feeling of not feeling good enough because you didn't hit the mark that you really wanted to hit. So what if we just dropped failure altogether? Because people call it a failure. I'm like, look, I've had money, I've lost money, I've had money, I've lost money, I've had money. And I agree with you. Having money is better. Duly noted. And that's why we teach people how to build businesses as a part of their learning experience. But when we sit there and say, well, Sarah, doggone it, you're awesome. It's okay. You failed forward. What's going to happen next? Well, I'm going to go do it again. But if I fail, that'll be okay too. You're still programming yourself to fail. And emotionally, what you're really saying is, I'm not going to acknowledge what it feels like to feel that feel, whatever you associate failure with, but I'm going to put all this manure over the top and go, yeah, but I failed forward and, I learned something and doggone it, people like me. No, they don't. And no, you didn't. That is total hogwash. You are programming yourself to repeat the process. And the sad part is you will, because that's how our mind works. Remember, 95% of your world, inside and outside, is run automated by a thing called the subconscious. Now, it's called subconscious for a reason, family. Sub meaning below your conscious awareness. You don't control it. It must come from up inside in order to reprogram a subconscious mind. It's not an outside-in job. It's an inside-out job. So if you want to fail forward, that's great. You're just getting one step closer to a bigger failure. Awesome. But at least you get to own that too, right?
I like that. I like that you proved me wrong as well. Lovely.
No, not proving you wrong. Just wanting your listeners to really think, because again, we're so flippant with what we say, but we don't think about it.
Yeah.
We just go.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
So, I know we spoke about this a lot before we started recording the podcast today, but just for everybody, what is your personal continued motivation in life to succeed? And I know it was really all about the educational piece, but I'd just love you to share with everybody kind of what that's about and what's driving you with that.
Yeah, thank you. Beautiful question. And the short answer is the 3 Ps. I'm an addict. I'm an addict to watching people wake themselves up. And when I've had, groups, and we have 2,000-3,000 people at our conventions, and everybody's waking themselves up. They're not following Travis Fox because I'm just as messed up as you are. I just know I am. Let's just solve that problem. Okay. I've been on a journey to, get Travis's head on for 30 years. And I've discovered a system that works and scales and has done it thousands and thousands of times around the world. Okay, great. So it's not follow Travis Fox. It's something I really, I'm a strong staunch against a lot of the self-help people. It's like, well, follow me. Why? You're just as messed up as I am, mate. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have great teaching, but following you is different than walk alongside me. So in the architect community, we walk alongside each other. Yes, I may be the founder and the CEO, and that's great. That's a title. And I will phase myself out of this in the next 10 years. And I move on to the next part. As I go emeritus, I'll move into Architect Circle, which is a different part of the company. But the real truth is I'm addicted to that space. Well, there's only one thing. If you really study addiction, I don't mean addictions in drugs or alcohol, but similar concepts. I'm addicted to watching people wake themselves up, because when they recognize that they're already enlightened, they're already these beautiful creators, they're already master architects, they just forgot for a while, and they understand that, unbelievable what they create. And these other people show up that are just cooperative and amazing, and it moves. And I'm not saying about kumbaya and, dancing naked around a fire, although that'd be interesting too. That's not what I'm really referencing. I'm referencing, if you really want to create change, not to quote, the great Michael Jackson, but you got to start with the man or woman in the mirror. And being that addicted, it's not searching for the outside in experience saying, hey, I can only be in passion when the classes graduate. I can only be in passion when I'm teaching, or I can only be in passion when I'm on a film or television show or on a podcast. No, I'm in passion 24 hours a day, because I get to feel that feeling all the time. And as I feel that feeling, now when I walk into it, it just expands itself. It's not, oh, great, I got it because I had to recharge. I had to refuel because I've been passionless for a long time. No, it just keeps expanding. And so that it becomes this never ending concept. And I think the key to that for people is to really own what passion is. And passion isn't just, hey, I'm high all the time and I'm this manic personality. It's, I'm even passionate when, I'm not happy with maybe a filming that I did, or I'm not happy with the way the course is coming out. It's not generating the results in the people, but I'm passionate enough to go dive into it and figure it out and go, well, let's tweak it. Let me get a control group. Let me work with these people. Let's figure it out. And it's still the passion of architecting. And to me, I think perhaps probably because I probably fall on the Asperger spectrum somewhere based on everything I've been told and, my own self-diagnosis, if you will. To me, architecting is like building a blueprint, and I can just see it, and I love doing it, and all these things fit together. And when I show someone how to architect, they're like, wow, it really is that easy. I'm like, yeah, it's not just thinking it shows up. That's wishful thinking. It doesn't work that way. There's a whole lot more going on, but when you truly understand it, it's no different than a car, right? Once you understand how an engine works, you'll drive the car completely differently because you can fix it, right? As opposed to, oh, I guess we should just do 20 kilometers an hour because, we don't want to hurt the engine. Yeah, but if you know how to fix it, it's okay. Go experience it. Same concept, because the engine, meaning your body, whether you like it or not, is going to stay here on Earth. It's going to go back. So let's own it, but we know how to really manage ourselves. And I think that's really been the key is staying true to the passion, behind closed doors and out front. It's not an on-off switch for me. Yeah. It's just on all the time.
Fab. The point I really loved there was about you talking about walking beside people that you're working with rather than, people following you. And I think that's really important, because one of the things that I really try to, encourage all my listeners to believe is that I guess what I'm trying to say is people put people on a pedestal a lot of the time that are already successful. So when we listen to these other people, what I tend to find, and I've had my own experiences of this earlier on in my career, is I was putting people on a pedestal and thinking I can never talk to that person because they're better than me, or that, I love that point about that you're teaching people to walk beside everybody else, because ultimately everybody is the same person.
Yeah, it's a reflection, right? I mean, I'm really adamant about it. I have an architect council. They're all, my top students that have been graduating. They're teachers on their own right. They have their own brands. But, I'm accountable to my council, and they are to me, just because I'm the CEO. But if you actually read my last book, which is called Architect That, How to Build Your Business by Leading from the Bottom Up, I've turned the entire model upside down. So normally the CEO's at the top and you tell everybody below you what to do. I flip the entire model around, and it also goes with, with our company logo, the Helix Man. And it's a double entendre that it's an inside out job. And if you actually run your company the same way, I'm the CEO, I'm at the bottom. I'm way at the bottom of the V, and my job is to make sure that each layer is supported and it goes wider, but it doesn't have a limit, where this model has a limit. It's all on one person. Well, that's a lot to ask for any one man or one woman, because you're on the planet too. So yeah, you may have a certain amount of knowledge, but you're still messed up like we are, because you're on the journey. But here it's my job is to continue to allow the academy to grow, and each architect and each one of the trainers and teachers and students to get the full experience from that education, and then empower them to go wherever they want to go and support them. So it's not, hey, you need to report to Travis Fox because you work for me, quote unquote. It's quite the opposite. I work for all of them. So that model inversely, and I've taught many company cultures how to work the reverse model, because it's unlimited. And that's really what we are, right? I mean, it's not, if we're all going to say we're from the law of attraction, or we're attached in, well, why don't we own it? Why don't we, okay, I'm not saying that you're God, but you're definitely a part of God, however you define God. And the way I couch it for people is going, well, how about this? We're all grains of sand on the beach of God. The beach doesn't exist without the grains, and the grains don't exist without the beach. So there's this beautiful dualistic state that we live in. But what if you just own the fact that you can architect your life? You can, because guess what? There is one truth. Great architect said, you're only here for a time. You get your vacation called life. This is called life. And then it's over. Ta-da. Well, let's go have some fun with that. So when you start owning that from that perspective, it's amazing what people can create. And it's amazing what they do. I sit back and I'm in awe every day. I go, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. Wait, I'm just the architect helping you figure it out. Beyond that, I'm way beyond my pay grade. So it's a really different experience. And when they start to realize it's not follow Travis Fox, you got to be the higher thing. Yeah, okay, I'm there and I'll answer questions to the best of my ability. But I'm very adamant with people. Look, I don't have any answers for you. Anybody who tells you they do is flat out lying to you. They don't have answers for you. If you're really going to architect and help people discover and rediscover, more importantly, who they are, own it. I don't have any answers for you, Sarah, but I've got a really good system that's worked for 30 years. For you, we're going to architect it. We're going to show you how to ask the questions, how to structure it so that you can remember the answers for yourself, because that's the only truth that bloody matters. Everything else is just an opinion. And it really creates a different thing. Then we walk as one big line. And as we all walk together, we're all connected. Now we truly are connected because it goes that way, unlimited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet.
So interestingly, you just kind of touched on support there. And I know earlier you were mentioning your mentor, and I kind of wanted to ask you really about the most influential people, I guess, that have been in your life. And I know that you said to me before that the kind of the two big ones for you were ultimately, one, your mentor, and two, Dennis Waitley. And I just wanted to know, really for everybody who's listening, why specifically those two people? What did they do for you? How did they impact your life in such a way that made you want to carry on? What did they help you? Just an overview really, and more so because many people that I speak to who have been hugely successful have all had mentors or coaches of some description. So I guess what I wanted to know is, how has that impacted you, and how has it helped you ultimately become as successful as you are today?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Dr. Waitley to me is the demigod of us all, right? He is the great one. And to be able not in just one film, but two films with him this year has kind of completed a full hero's journey for me. So going all the way back, harken to my golf career, when I was younger, I started reading all of these self-help books. I wrote Dale Carnegie, I read Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics. But when I read The Psychology of Winning, it's like a light bulb clicked off in my head. And I went, this guy's onto something. He really breaks it down to a step-by-step system, at least at the time for what he was teaching. And it was phenomenal because for me, I'm a how-to guy. And I think a lot of people are how-tos. If I can show you how to do it, you'll learn it and absorb it and apply it. But if I just say, well, if you just think it, it'll show up, you'll go, yeah, that's great. And next, and we'll move on. And so his impact on me was there. And I started seeing massive results in my golf game because I went systematically. When everything went, to heck in a handbasket, as I said earlier, my mentor comes in. My mentor was identical. My mentor was identical from the way he taught me step by step. And he really took me down the rabbit holes of teaching. It wasn't just, hey, by the way, you're going to get your degrees and I'm going to guide you through it and blah, blah, blah. He would really take me down rabbit holes and not just teach, but also teach me in a way that I had to create the steps to heal myself. No different than we do in Blueprint to Healing, which is one of our programs. I had to create it first, and I'd come back and I'd reflect with him. So he was an amazing teacher, no different than Dr. Waitley. And, every time, Dennis speaks to me, it's phenomenal. I've been with him multiple times this year, and I'll be with him again as we travel on the tour. And at the age he's at now, for him to say, and this year I heard it personally say, I was less than 20 meters from when he said it. And I was sitting at the table having lunch with him, and he said, at my age, I've really discovered that I don't know anything, that the things I thought I used to believe and the things I used to teach, I was teaching from where I thought I knew. And now the truth is I'm really just a student. I mean, my jaw hit the table. I'm like, Dennis, are you having an out of body experience? Are you okay, mate? And I'm like, you're the grandfather of us all. We all stand on the shoulders of what you've built and what the roads you've paved and the millions of lives you've impacted, and no different than, the architects. For me to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder and walk with him as though, I still idolize him, as you can probably tell. And, he completely debunks that, by the way. He's like, Travis, knock it off. I'm like, it's hard, Doc. I mean, come on, you're Dennis Waitley. He's like, yeah, but you're Dr. Fox. I'm like, yeah, but you're Dr. Dennis Waitley. There's a difference, dude. Come on. And he's such a sweetheart. And so is his daughter, both amazing souls. And, the stacking, I think for those two to have that bigger impact on me was really the impetus of how do we actually do it? And I think that's what separated both of them as great teachers, as one was, and obviously still is, the other, Dennis Waitley himself. And then, me following in a distant third and saying, my objective is to, eclipse and to make the impact these gentlemen have had, not just on my life, but the millions of lives that they've had and we've done through architecting. But it's a how. It's really the how. And I think that's how we learn, right? I mean, that's how we've been teaching humans for 6,000 years. And then all of a sudden we're like, no. It's got to be automated, Sarah. You got to do an online lander to an OTO campaign. But wait, there's more. If you buy now, we'll sell it to you for $19.95. And you can watch a video and do it yourself and still be screwed up. But wait, we'll sell you some more crap that's not going to teach you anything, because the truth is it's still an outside-in job. And these gentlemen had such an impact on me at such an early age. And Travis, create a system that people can actually measure the results, understand what they're learning, and experience it. And it has been the impetus for my success. So if I were to say that's the thing, it's the blueprint.
Awesome. So another thing that I wanted to touch on with you, which I found really interesting, is from a mindset perspective. I know that people have very different opinions of kind of how much mindset plays overall into success. And you
Sure.
have a really interesting take on it. So you said to me before that you thought this was only 50% of the equation,
Mm.
and the real kind of secrets are blueprinted. And once they're blueprinted, then everything becomes clearer. So I guess my question is, if in your opinion, mindset only makes up 50%, what do you think the rest of it is?
Heart. And I'm actually being quite generous when I say 50%, because I was a mindset trainer. I was trained to be a mindset trainer, and I abandoned mindset as an exclusivity when I was 35. And the third great teacher of my life was my youngest child, my second son, who came in, fully autistic. And I realized that with, the great Dr. Fox, quote unquote, the great communicator, the guy that was, on stages all over the world, and I've got thousands of hours on stage and films, like, great. I have no idea how to talk to my kid. None, no clue, because autistics talk from a completely different perspective. They talk from an emotional perspective, which is how we really actually are designed to speak and communicate. And we do this when we're young, but we're so, bashed into mindset training, get responsible, be an adult. Big boys don't cry. Little girls have to look this way. And we have all these just programs that just slam us into a conformity box. And when he came along, my autistic son is about as conformed as a squiggly line. He's going to be who he wants to be. He's authentically who he's going to be. And he holds that space, and he does it in a beautiful way. And I was dumbfounded. And I tell this story, and I share it with your audience in brevity, is I remember he was 7 years old, and it changed my life forever. And that's when I realized that Dr. Fox was a personality that I had created as a way to, honor my two mentors and say, I did it. I'm out there teaching, and I'm Dr. Fox. But I still wasn't being fully Travis. I hadn't realized that Travis being enough was enough. I hadn't gotten there yet. And this is, at the staunch age of 35, because clearly at 35, you know everything. At least I thought I did. And, the letters behind my name, made sure that verified that I knew something. I didn't know anything because I still hadn't figured me out. My autistic son sitting there, and I'll never forget, we were in Atlanta, Georgia. It was fall. And, every kid plays in a pile of leaves. Most kids just jump and, yay, throw leaves around. Well, not my son. My son is sitting there, and he stared at it for a minute or two. And I'm watching like a hawk. All right, what is he doing now? And he grabs these two leaves, Sarah, and he stares at them. Now, I've been around leaves most of my life, and I don't think I've stared at them longer than a nanosecond. But he stares at them for what seems like 15 seconds. It's probably about that long. And he's staring at them, and he's just looking at them, observing them like, wow, that's interesting. And then he just starts to crumple them slowly in this very kind of diligent motion, and he feels every crunch. He hears the sound of it, and he gets to this, and he really is into it, and he's so into it, he forgets that I'm there. He forgets the whole world's around him, and he just starts getting really excited, and he laughs, and he's giddy, and he's passionate. He picks up two leaves and does it again. And I sat him, watch him do this for a half hour straight, and I sat there, and I just started bawling. I bawled like a 5-year-old little boy, and I'm staring at him and said, I've never been that happy about anything in my life. Never been fully ecstatic, fully present, and fully enjoying the experience. How dare I call myself teacher when I haven't taught myself to truly experience joy of life? And here is this 7-year-old autistic kid who's getting more joy and happiness about just crumpling leaves. Then all my accolades meant nothing compared. And that broke me wide open in my heart, where I went, I'm missing the one thing that misses the most, which is its heart. So when we talk about mindset training, what cracks me up, an audience, I share this with you almost as a justful jab. How does a mindset train a mind? It's still bloody mind. That's like asking the inmates in the asylum to make it better. It's still nuts because they're still nuts. So let's just own that. So if you actually think about the mind, the brain, conscious, subconscious, and simplicity, all of its amazing components, is still a tool that stays here on planet Earth when you leave. Therefore, just by definition of that concept, there's a birth, there's a death. Okay, there must be an entry point from something, and there's an exit point. I call that great architect, spirit, God, soul, chi, Allah, Yahweh. I don't care. You call it what you want. We call it architect for simplicity. So there's something bigger than you running the show. Maybe if you're just willing to go beyond this mindset thing and go, lop off that thing on top of your head, drop in, all of a sudden now you're training from the heart up, meaning I come from my emotions, I create a belief structure, my subconscious automates that sequence, and then I tell my conscious mind to be on the lookout for the things that I want to experience. And now all of a sudden I'm creating from experience to experience. Instead of, coincidence or deja vu being happenstance, it's on purpose. You're looking for them. You're diabolically going, yes, And then you see it and you go and you follow it. And then you start to understand that, you know, your comprehension of those things is way beyond your comprehension. More importantly, it's not a requirement for your cooperation. I mean, how often have you not listened to your instincts going, dang, I should have listened to my instincts? When you say I, you're talking about that mindset stuff. Oh, I should have listened. Is talking about the I in your head, not the I in your heart that goes, you know, Sarah, it doesn't really matter whether you understand or not. The question is, are you willing to cooperate and get yourself out of your own way? And that's where people really get caught up. And I know I've done it in the past too, where I get caught up in my own negative thinking. I get caught up in my limited beliefs. I get caught up, I'm not good enough. I'll never make it, blah, 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 as opposed to just understanding how to listen. So mindset is great, but if your mind is training a mind, it's still mind. And mind stays here on earth. There's something bigger than you. The question is, are you ready to discover that or not?
Honestly, thank you. And I think really a personal thank you for sharing such a beautiful story about your son. That was really touching, honestly, really heartfelt.
Cheers.
So really, I suppose the last kind of question for me to wrap up would be, what is the biggest piece of advice, and I ask this to everybody, that you could give to anybody listening about who, I guess, somebody who wants to be really successful? What's the one piece of advice that you think they should take away?
I think you want to, the one thing I would say, just as a knee jerk to the way that question was framed to me, is really define what success means to you. Because more often than not, your mindset is going to give you a whole kind of a fantasy of what you think it's going to look like when or if you ever achieve this so-called success. I can tell you, having success myself and having, you know, quote unquote fame, I'm not Brad Pitt, you know, or anything alike, but I've had enough fame to go, it's not quite what I thought about when I remembered wanting to be famous. And when I got there, I was like, does anybody actually really know me? Or am I showing myself? Or am I playing for the cameras? Am I doing the interview? Am I not being authentic? All these other things come up that you're not prepared for. So I think the first advice is, what does success really mean to you? And if you can step back to the very first part of this conversation and go, if I only had 30 days left to live, would I be doing anything I'm doing right now? And if the answer is no, that's a great place to start redefining success. And then you'll get to notice two things. One, as you start to redefine it, where does your mindset object to it? Because that's where the hidden problems really are. And what this film is all about, or at least the initial blueprint, is to invite you to go, it's not the world that's screwing you up. It's not your boss. It's not your husband or your wife or the kids or whatever. It's your head, right? Bottom line. And if you keep getting mindset training from other minds, I mean, let's just call it out. So what if we were to drop into a little bit deeper and go, well, let's look at this from a real finality point of view. If you only had 30 days left to live, would you be doing it? And I will surmise it with another story to give you proof that I don't just speak this because it sounds cool. It is from years of training thousands of students, and also my own personal journey, like I share with my son. But ironically and timely, my father just passed earlier this year in January of 2020. Ironically, as his fate would have it, he had beaten kidney cancer. They went in and say, Mr. Fox, you've beaten kidney cancer. That's great news. By the way, we have some other news for you. You have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. You have 30 days left to live, literally. So my father, in his choices, as I said in summation, spent 30 days in the hospital, said goodbye to his brother and uncle, never called, none of his grandchildren, me, nothing, his ex-wife, no one, and just slipped into the darkness on his own and said goodbye. So I ask you, if that's how you'd want to spend the last 30 days, and obviously that's an interesting choice, but is that really where you'd want to spend it? And so my father, and the last lesson he ever gave me was exactly what I've been teaching for the last 20 years. Whether he knew that or not, I don't know. But when you look and you go, you've got 30 days left to live because you've got pancreatic cancer. I promise you, success means something completely different to you than I need to go make a boatload of money or a boatload of, success. That's great. Let's go do that. But what happens if that gets taken away from you? Do you have the skill sets, not the mindset, a true wealth set, which is what architecting teaches you, that you can take that anywhere, anytime, any place, and you're not scared anymore. You're not scared to lose the money. You're not scared that you're going to be on the street. You're not scared you're not going to feed your family because you have the skill set to truly architect and create your life. So define success on multiple levels. Don't limit yourself to money, because money is just paper. If you want proof, take a match or take a lighter, light it. It burns. Now you know. Great. Problem solved. It's the value that you assign to it because of your mindset training that tells you what that money's worth to you. Let's go beyond that. Let's go to what is your true success at the soul level? What does your heart really want? And that question's a great place to start. Obviously, there are many others, but that's a great place to start because it puts the truth in perspective. You're not getting off this planet alive, loves. So let's own this. Let's experience our butt off, and let's define success of X, Y, or Z and money too. You can have riches and wealth, but you got to have the wealth skill set first before you get rich mindset. That's what I'd say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lovely. So that's the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Travis, honestly, for joining us today on the show. It's been absolutely incredible speaking to you. And thank you for sharing such amazing stories with us. And I'm sure you've definitely inspired me. And I'm sure you've inspired and motivated all the listeners at home. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Truly a pleasure. Truly a pleasure.
Thank you.